Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's 12:05, so we're going to get started. This is going to be recorded, so if anybody needs to do any kind of follow-up information and questions to us, let us know, but it will be recorded so we can send that out to you. We're so happy you could join us for another Nimlok Chicago webinar. I'm Deb Venable, co-founder and president of Nimlok Chicago, and I want to welcome you all to an hour that might change your perspective on how we all look at our workplaces. I'd like to say a special thanks to Sandra Mattel, who's our Nimlok Chicago marketing coordinator. She was wonderful in putting together today's presentation, and she's actually only started with us 3 weeks ago. We hope you have a tasty lunch in front of you, but we do hope that you do not fall in any kind of food comas at the half-hour mark, so hang tight with us. So let's get to it. As you know, culture is one of the hottest subjects in corporate America. This movement is pushing all of us in the right direction. Workplaces should be educational, interesting, and fun. Today, we're going to be talking about how our work environments are an emerging opportunity to have a competitive edge. Our guest today is a guy that I've known for 10 years, and he's highly talented and brilliant in this field. Tim Padgett is the CEO of 2 companies at once, which is not an easy road. Lucky for him, he's got an amazing team. As you will see through this presentation, he lives what we will be discussing today. One of his companies is Tier 1, the premier corporate employee volunteering system. You can see how it works at tier1.com, and that actually is tier spelled T-E-E-R, the number 1.com. I've had the unique opportunity to see Tim and his partner grow Tier 1 from a concept on the back of a napkin to landing 3M as their first client. Today, we're going to hear his take on how to bring a company's culture to life in ways you might not have imagined before. I know that when my Nimlok team saw Tim's presentation for the first time, they immediately gave me pressure to say, we have to do this, let's make some changes, let's do what Tim's already doing. So we've asked him today to share with you guys his insights into this topic. With all due respect, you can take over, Tim.
Well, thanks, Deb. Very nice intro. Thank you very much. What you see on your screen today, right now, are 4 quotations from one of my favorite guys, Joe Madden, the manager of the Cubs. It really gives you some insight into how he brings his particular culture into the clubhouse. And we're all seeing the results from that. Probably one of my favorites is don't ever permit the pressure to exceed the pleasure. And I think we can all relate to that. We all have enough pressure on us as it is. Let's make sure that we remember the pleasure of working with some great people on great products and services. And that's what we're here to talk a little bit about in trying to communicate that culture and that expertise to everyone who enters our workplace. So this is our mantra. We help from a communication standpoint. Deb mentioned Tier 1, which is the volunteering company, but we also have Pepper Group, which is a marketing communications firm. And for 22 years, we've been helping companies to communicate their brand and their value propositions in order to increase sales or help them educate their audiences. And a few years ago, we realized that we had a lot of different things that we were accomplishing for the HR side of the business. And since the talent wars are upon us, we wanted to take some of these products and services out to our customers. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how every environment, we want them to thrive. No matter what business you're in, you have customers and you want them to succeed. Sometimes it's through your expertise, or sometimes it's just observing something, and you'll see a chance here to share with them what you've observed. I also put this term together a little while back called Enviro Brand. So how can we make that environment really be branded so that every visitor to our workplace and everyone who shares it as a common workplace will have stimulation in order to share the brand. And then a big part of what we do is help clients to educate. And so in the same manner, we're going to be educating them on who our culture is and what's important to us. And then there's always that opportunity to entertain. And especially with the younger generations, they're used to a lot of infotainment. And how can we use a little bit of entertainment in which to communicate? And then last but not least, we really have a philosophy about community. And we'll be talking a little bit about how that can permeate into the workplace. So just a little bit about Pepper Group so you know where I'm coming from. I mentioned 22 years. We've been lucky enough to win the 101 Best and Brightest Companies to Work For in Chicago for now 4 years running. On your screen it says 3. We just got word last week that we have again reached that plateau, which we're very proud of. And it sure makes life easier when you're working with people who are really motivated. We've won a lot of awards for design. We've also done well in business, so we were recognized last year for that. We work with about 60 clients over the course of a year, and we also have a Best Place to Work honor from Illinois. We move people. That's our credo. That's our mantra. That's our purpose. And you'll see today where everything that we've done in the past helps to move people forward. We're very efficient in what we do. I not only have a creative background, but I also had the opportunity to implement a lot of processes and controls within the print environment before starting Pepper Group. These are some of the big name clients that you might know. These are all current clients of Pepper Group. We also work with a lot of middle market companies, which is really our bread and butter, where we can be the agency of record. And we help them with a variety of things within their workplace, as far as HR branding and communications, but also on the outside trying to help them sell their products and services. So today we're going to talk a little bit about talent brand, and that's very much the same definition with just a minor change as we would talk about a company's brand. It's really what the talent thinks about your talent brand, not necessarily what you're projecting. Hopefully they're in line with each other, but really it comes back to what does that talent think about your company, and can they support it if you're going to talk about it in a certain way. And why is this important? Today we're going to talk a little bit about not just cool graphics and communication tools, but also what's the underlying business case for this. And here's a great one. If anyone knows anything about turnover, it's expensive. They say that it can be a cost to the company of $6,000 for a factory worker, all the way up to 3 times a major manager's salary. And so anytime you have turnover, it's going to cost the company money. And if you can reduce the time it takes to hire people and not have to hire as many, you're going to have a competitive advantage. I'm going to just talk a little bit about communication as far as solving problems. You know, throughout my life, the older I get, the more I understand that communication is probably the most important element in either success or failure. The lack of it in failure, of course. So how can we use communication to make sure that we're connecting with our audiences? And there is a lot of confusion these days about that new workforce, those millennials, and they're already naming the next generation, Generation Z. So we're going to have other things to deal with. But every one of our generations was a pain to the one before it. So I think it's something that we need to understand a little bit more. And I think as people mature, they start to realign their values and so forth. But I think with the communication tools that we have today, we have to recognize that people have the flexibility to have a work-life balance that's different than we ever experienced before. And how can we support that? And then also, this is the one generation that has really said, we love to work in collaboration with communities together. I know that in my office, if I give a project to 2 people, it gets done in a quarter of the time than one person could do it. So it's a real interesting way in which to leverage that trust that they build in each other for success. And then last but not least, does the company have that right voice and the energy? Is there a frequency? Is there a creative way to say the same thing multiple times? Very rarely do any of us hear something once and it sticks forever. There has to be that continuity and that flexibility of saying things in different ways. So you know that the employees have a voice. Everyone's familiar with at least Glassdoor. Indeed is now one of the biggest websites for looking for jobs that there is. and people can post what life is like in your company. And so not only do you want to monitor that to see if things are going the way you're thinking they are, but also you can infiltrate those sites with some good input as well. So that's something that we always say to a company. If you have any bad reviews up there, counteract those with good ones. If your employees know that it's a great place to work and maybe there were a couple of bad apples that didn't work out, tell them to put some stuff up there because it could mean the difference between working with A players and working with C players. And so we all want to work with A players. Another underlying factor from an economic standpoint is engaged work groups are really worth pursuing. If you can get there, you're going to have a super competitive advantage over other companies. And you can see where the numbers here are a no-brainer. This was a Gallup survey done about 2 years ago, and almost every HR director understands the value there. Another thing that I'd like to talk about, and it took a long time for me to adopt core values because I had been a salesperson for most of my career, new business development. You see a lot of lobbies. You see a lot of brass plaques in the lobby that say who a company is and what they stand for. But oftentimes that's not translated into the day-to-day life. So another reason to pursue it, though, if a company has strong values, purpose, mission, and vision, they can attain a much higher employee retention, client retention, and profit. So again, it's just a matter of communication. How do you structure this? I'm going to show you some pretty cool examples. So let's start with one. This is right from Pepper Group. We're only a 20-person firm, so we don't have the resources that large companies have, but it really doesn't matter. If you've got the right idea, you can apply it in many different ways. So we have our Kick-Ass Award. It's just an opportunity for peer-to-peer recognition. Whenever someone sees someone else kicking ass, whatever their definition is, they write up a little slip and we put these in a can, and on Monday mornings at our all-company meeting, we open that can and read each one aloud. We have about 15 to 25 submissions per week. And not only are we thanking our fellow workers for doing a great job and going above and beyond, we try and connect the behavior to one or more of our core values, which you see there on the white sheet. And so in the event that we want to communicate one of the core values being strength of the wolf is in the pack, we make this a program that supports that. We're making sure that we're telling people that we appreciate them being in the pack. Now, the cool thing about it is that when you come to our office, you're going to see this as part of our tour. You walk down this hallway, you can see some of the ads we've done, some of the logos that we've done, but then you come upon this very rich and vibrant presentation of all the sheets that have been done in the last few months or quarters. And it invariably creates an opportunity to talk about who our people are, the character of them, and why that affects the work product in the most positive way possible. So I said that we'd talk a little bit about community because the metaphors and the analogies are so close between a residential community or a metropolis to a company itself. So the standard Webster Dictionary definition, if you read it here, you're going to see that it obviously applies to a town or a village or some sort of enclave. But think about it within the terms of a business. A social group of any size whose members reside in a specific locality, share government, and often have a common cultural and historical heritage. All of those can easily transition to the workplace. And if that's true, what's the greatest thing about a community? They share. So again, I'm going to reach into some of the things that Pepper Group does. This is called the Higgy. Long story about why it's named that, but he has been floating around our office for over 20 years. And he signifies peer-to-peer learning. So this is a way in which, if you have this on your desk, it's a reminder to everyone in the company that you should be taught something this week. And on Monday morning, you're going to come in to our all-company meeting, and when the time comes, you're going to say that Melissa taught me this, or Jennifer taught me this, Todd taught me this, But the coolest thing I learned was from George. He showed me how to do such and such. So now everyone in the company gets a chance to hear about that new learning and maybe reach over after the meeting and say, hey, I didn't know about that, or I would like to know more about this. And so George, in that instance, would have the Higgy for the following week. So when you consider that he's been moving around 50 times a year for over 20 years and probably sharing 4 to 5 things per time, that's a lot of learning. Some of it would have happened anyway, but it is a mechanism in order to share. And that's the most important thing here. We all know something, no matter how much experience we have, that we can share with someone else who may not have had that same experience. We also share, as one of our core values, pride in craft and service. And so we have a lot of pride in what we do, and we're lucky to be in the business that we are. So throughout our workplace, we have these magnet boards where we put up things that we've seen other people do. And when they've done a great job at communicating with that audience, we celebrate that as well. So there's a lot of opportunity for internal communication in the workplace itself. So let's take the simplest version of any kind of signage. Now, whether these are things that can be rotated in and out from a physical standpoint, or whether they're showing up on a screen somewhere, it's the message that counts. And Deb and her team are always looking for ways for unique presentations of this information. So to get energy going, you need to talk about events that are upcoming. If you want participation, you advertise for it. There are different programs that are available within the company. That's nice, they're offered, but where do we celebrate those and the progress that's being made because of them? Infographics are a great new way to use. Thank goodness for USA Today, who really started it out on page 1 many years ago, using an infographic to tell some sort of information. And now you see it everywhere. And how can you use those within your company to share some of the pride and the accomplishments that you do? And one of our clients is 3M. So every quarter, they have us design a whole new set of infographic coasters for all of their conference rooms. So whenever you arrive in a conference room, you're either the first, the last, or someone in between, but you're reaching for a coaster, and it's a little bit of information to share what the company's been doing. That can be scaled anywhere from a Fortune 100 company to your company or ours. And last but not least, that encouragement. Successories many years ago had a very nice product line. Now we can even customize that to be the same sort of messaging, but using our own experiences to share that. At Pepper Group, this is from a hallway that we have. The glass case shows some of the projects that we've done for lead generation, but over to the right there are 4 coasters that we developed based on that same concept from 3M as our own coasters. And some of them are a little tongue-in-cheek, some of them are right on about Pepper Group. But we sent these out to our clients and prospects as a nice little gift, but we also use these in our own conference room. This is a project done by Deb and her team that has a little different slant on infographics. It's really just kind of a celebration of Chicago and all of the interests that people have within the city and the things that they like to do. You'll also notice some screens up top, so they're using digital information that changes on a constant basis, or they can use TV for lunchtime activities, whatever it may be. So there's the versatility, and then there's the foundational elements in there. It's a really nice presentation and interesting. This is one that I truly love. For the Hub Group, Deb and her team did a real nice job of sharing the philosophies. Phil Yeager was the founder, and look at that face. Look at that impressionable message that you get when you walk down that hall. Whether you walk down it every day or whether you're a visitor. You could be a prospect, you could be a client, you could be a vendor, you could be a recruit. What are they going to learn about the company when they see something as dramatically presented as this? Going back to Pepper Group, you can see that one display case there. What we like to share is a little historical part of Pepper Group with that one. These are all promotional things that we did over the years to attract attention. You can also see up on the top 8 bottles of hot sauce. Each one of them has a label that we've done over the last 8 years. That's our handy giveaway. But it really shows the historical nature, because when someone's walking through your company, they want to build confidence. And confidence means longevity sometimes. So this is a way in which we could share that. But there's lots of other things that you want to share within the workplace. And there's not time today to show you ways in which all of it gets done. But let's talk about a couple of categories that I think are really important. So we talk a lot about how much we spend sending people to different training events, workshops, conventions, that type of thing. And there's a way in which to share that experience with the rest of the company. And whether that's a display within the workplace or whether that's in a digital format in your intranet, there are ways in which to make sure that everyone knows what's happening. And obviously, if you go to a workshop for 2 days, you can't share with everyone all the things you learn. But you can certainly share some of the highlights. And it's really good to reinforce that people are out there learning new things, bringing back new ideas and innovation to your company. Even if you don't know the technical aspects of what an accountant went and learned for 2 days, at least you have a pride factor that everyone's going out to try and improve themselves. Health issues. Health issues probably create the most anxiety in our lives. And so how can this community share their experience or their ability to maybe partner up? We already know that all kinds of studies have said that if you want to have a wellness or an exercise routine, it's great to buddy up. So how can a company facilitate that? And then how can they celebrate the successes? So having a wall that shows when people have gotten together and exercised and lost weight or are eating better, whatever it might be, these are things that there's knowledge within, and there's the ability to share, and there's the chance to work together toward better health. We all have social activities. It used to be that sports teams kind of were the way in which people got out and did something: softball, volleyball, bowling teams, whatever it might be. Today we have a lot more interests, and especially the younger generations who might be gamers, for instance. So how do they have a platform in which they can share their experience and their passion for what they do? How about foodie outings? Everyone seems to get into food these days. You want to encourage people to get out and experience that together. Book clubs, plays and movies, biking, camping. A company doesn't necessarily have to develop an entire curriculum for all of this. They just need to facilitate the chance for everyone to do it, whomever wants to. And then let's make sure that we're talking about it a lot or showing the progress that we're making in those areas in which we have fun together and we build better trust and we have more empathy for each other, which obviously helps collaboration back in the office. And company alumni. That's something that a lot of large companies leverage very well. But maybe it's just a point at which you walk through your environment and see all the people who have helped create the foundation and have moved on into either retirement or maybe even greater opportunities. But it's a great group to talk about and celebrate. Within the workplace, you can have a lot of kiosks and stuff that we call culture kiosks. This is an example again at Pepper Group. You can see this wall from the lobby, and these are places where we ask people to sign in. And the first one you can read pretty well, best piece of advice. Or there's one that just says, please sign in. And then the last one says, what's your favorite advertising icon? So it's a little participatory. If someone's waiting for someone to come out from Pepper Group to meet with them, this is something that they can grab a few markers and have some fun. A lot of these things, especially that best piece of advice part, has created a deeper relationship between us and our visitors. It provides us with an opportunity to tell different stories about their experience. Now here's Follett Corporation. They're a client of ours, and we made an entire display wall for them that reflect their core values and recognizing excellence in any way it happens. Sandwiched between those plexiglass panels is a removable and exchangeable little story about how someone was working on something that really supported the core values. And you can see some of the headlines on there. Nice, awesome job. This is something that the company really has a great culture there, and it's one more way to communicate. And some of these things could be done, again, electronically, but we kind of know what happens. They fall down in the inbox, etc. And certainly the people who visit your company don't have a chance to see things unless you're doing a great job in displaying who you are. I'm going to ask Deb to give you a little bit of history on this one. When I saw this picture that they shared with me, I thought, wow, they nailed it. They really nailed it. They brought the historical side to the company into a whole wall. And what are they trying to communicate here? Well, I'll let Deb tell the story.
So this is a cutout from the Hub Group project that we did. And Hub Group had relocated to, it's down in Oak Brook, a beautiful, very modern, very slick building. And of course, as you've seen from some of the other pictures that Tim's shown, it was very high end and very nice. But one thing that's very awesome about Hub Group is that they really do want to make sure that, you know, Philip Yeager, who founded the company in 1971, is always remembered because he took the company so far, and it was him that kind of, you know, pushed what they do. And just to give you an insight, if you've seen them on the expressways, they're the big trailers that have the Hub Group, so they're transportation. So not necessarily the most, you know, sexy, exciting thing to be in a company with, but what they did here is he was such an innovator, he was such a leader, he really had some nostalgic pieces of you know, his memory of where the company was and where it is now. And honestly, when they bought the new building and they decided to build in Oak Brook, he had passed away, and his office, his old office, still had, you know, his original desk and a lot of original things. And it was very hard to break away from that kind of rooted tradition. So what Hub Group decided to do, and we helped them kind of integrate, was to design this time wall and this kind of timeline and pull out some great nostalgic pieces that would give people inspiration about how far the company has come. So just a neat way to honor the memory of the gentleman who started the company.
Yeah, I love this. Who wouldn't stop and take a moment to feel how this company started from that?
And there's an example of their actual trailers, and they're what you would probably see on the road. So kind of a neat way to mix the old with the new. And in my experience with our working with clients on these kind of enviro brands is that even the new millennials like history. They like to see, how did we get where we are now?
This is one of my favorites too, because Deb and her team were able to take an idea and really make something that was unique about it. So maybe you can share with them E.B. Brown. They're a big distributor for the 7-Elevens of the world, and they had a mission to share maybe the fun. I think the most part is the fun.
Well, and with these guys, they really wanted to challenge themselves to convey the core values in a much more engaging and interesting way. So instead of just putting up the core values in a conference room somewhere that people never see or read, they were the two people who are behind this are two brothers. And they kind of boiled it down and said, hey, you know, we founded this business on, and the core values on what we grew up with, which is treehouse rules. And everybody has treehouse rules, and everybody knows what's allowed and what's not. So they are clever as it is. And when they came to us, they said, how do we communicate this to the rest of the company, though, what we believe and what we are building this company from? And the treehouse rules, then our designer here took it took it to life and literally made a treehouse graphic. And you can see a little bit. It's you know, it says fun in the bottom corner there, and just some neat things that they said were part of, you know, who they were and what they wanted to make sure their customers, but again, most importantly, their employees, because it's a very tight knit group. And again, pulling back to kind of the roots of their upbringing, and you know, kids get along. You know, what you learned in kindergarten, you should be applying today, and it was a great way for them to communicate some what could be boring core values.
Thanks, Deb. Um, this is a good time if you have any questions that you might want to type them in and be able to share with us. We'll be answering those at the end if you do have some. This is really cool too. When they sent me this picture, I really wanted to know what was up here because I like the pathway that happens. I like the idea that you're actually taking a journey to learn about Nimlok. And Deb, maybe you can talk a little bit about how this evolved from a concept to reality.
Yeah, what happened here is that Nimlok has been around since the 1970s, and we actually lost our founder last April, so you know, a little over a year ago. And you know, again, to respect where the business came from and why we all are where we are, it was kind of a cool way for us to bring somebody through a path to show them the original pictures of the original building, and then guide them through this experience. And again, you know, we design trade show exhibits and experiences, so we opted to make a kind of a hallway that would show this experience. And as you wind through this, you see some of the awards that we've won. You see some of the countries that we work in. You know, you see that shovel there in the corner. That was the groundbreaking for the new building and the new facility. So again, just a way to immerse somebody in who we are. And this is used twofold. It's used for new employees to walk through and say, wow, I'm part of a pretty long, you know, rooted group. And then also for customers to see, again, you know, who we are and what we can do for them.
Yeah, I think it's a great example of influencing the visitor.
Yeah.
Because in this case, when you think about if you're a prospect, you're looking to build confidence in this company. Do I want to give them my business? Am I going to take that risk? This is a new company. I'm going to join them. From a customer standpoint, it's another way to reinforce that they made a good decision. And obviously, if it's a recruit that's walking through and they have choices, and they're going to have more choices because it's a buyer's market for jobs these days, especially in some of the verticals like engineering and medical. You're going to have to compete for those people. And it's not only the conversations you have, but the impression you make. So coming back around to kind of reinforce the business side of this, it's interesting, and this was pretty scary to some degree, I think. 70% of U.S. workers are not engaged or actively disengaged. Deb is a best place to work. Pepper Group's a best place to work. We're not familiar with that kind of disengagement, but it does take a lot of effort to make sure everyone remains engaged. Here's one of my favorites. You know, we've had this through our company as a discussion many times over. When someone wants to leave the company, can we throw more money at them? Will they stay if we do? Well, that wasn't their motivation. Otherwise, they probably would have talked to you about it. So oftentimes, I think the number one category here as to why people leave is because of their direct manager or their leader. And if that relationship isn't solid, that's usually one of the high reasons that someone will leave. Now, here's the other thing. 87% less likely to leave their companies than their disengaged counterparts. Again, we know how this adds up to dollars. And it doesn't take a lot of effort to keep a few people around that might have left. And then 56% of respondents, and this is right in 2014, I'll bet it's larger now, considering a new job would be if a company has a reputation as a great place to work. So if you want to attract and retain the best and the brightest, This is not a nice to have anymore. This is really a competitive position and a good business decision. Like any good business decisions, you should have three components. The first one being that it's a good strategy for our business to do this. Second, are we willing to invest in it? Are we going to make sure it's going to work? And then third, you should have a reasonable expectation of a return on that investment. And I think this is a dollar for dollar, a really good investment for companies to make at this point. So just kind of rounding things out, remember what we're trying to do here is use communication, use an experience to help attract and hire people and keep them interested. You know, there's just so many things that you can share if you just make a little effort. We were talking with a company just the other day about diversity in their workplace. Well, why wouldn't they have a culture kiosk that shares the other cultures that are in that company? Celebrate them, talk about their foods and their customs and the other things that you can do. I think it's just a matter of sharing, and that shows them, that speaks volumes. How can we make sure that we're celebrating all of the diversity within our business? Easy to change out those things. So, do you have any questions? What can we fill in any gaps that we left open on this
So we
topic?
do actually have a couple questions that have come in. One of them, Tim, says, what differences are there between what millennials want from the workplace versus older generations? So I guess how do you get all generations to be engaged and connected when there's a lot of differences, or can be a lot of differences there?
Yeah, I think that that's a great question, because for a few generations we didn't need this type of thing in the workplace, nor was it really that kind of a social approach to work. You came to work, you worked hard, you made good money, and you went home. And now it's more of an interactive experience, especially with the knowledge work that our economy is doing more of these days, as opposed to manufacturing or even farming, where you're isolated and alone. So I think that millennials dig it a lot. There's no doubt about it. And in order to attract them, you've got to be on top of your communications in all different forms. But I think the older generations, X and baby boomers, etc., are also enjoying this, because it is educational. It is a way in which to build your pride in where you're at. And I think it goes to, we're all becoming a little more thankful for the things that we have, as opposed to trying to always seek for more and better. There's nothing wrong with that. But every once in a while, you got to stop and smell the roses. So
Right.
I think that gives everyone a good chance to do that.
So another question that came in was, how do we fit these initiatives into a budget? What department does this come out of?
Well, I think it should come out of every budget that benefits from it. So if the sales team finds that it's easier to land clients when they take a tour of our place, then they are benefiting and they should participate in that. HR should have a little part of taking this budget on. And marketing in general, obviously great opportunity there as well. So however a company does it, they should always keep in mind, why are we doing this, and what's it going to mean for a business decision. So sometimes you can break it down. Let's say that a company wants to invest $100,000 into making their place a better story to tell, let's call it. And you have maybe 1,000 visitors a year, which is pretty conservative for larger companies. But let's just say, for easy math, so you're spending $10 a person to influence each one of those visitors. Will that make a difference in their mindset and how they interact with you? I think it would. And I think it's a great way in which to, when we think about how often we throw $10 around like it's nothing in the workplace, as far as investments in people and learning and so forth, that's a very small number to use. And then, of course, you can multiply that over the years, right? So you might have 1,000 visitors for 5 years in a row with the same sort of interior that you have with small modifications. now your investment is really exponentially valuable to you.
Yeah. In our experience, this has been led by usually marketing and HR. Every now and then we will get somebody that comes to us from a facility management point where maybe they're in charge of completely branding an entire facility. But at the end of the day, to answer where the budget comes from, it usually does, like Tim said, come from a variety of different people. One question that was just kind of piggybacked on this, a little bit similar, is how do you even start a process like this? And I'll start, and Tim can follow up. Is it usually takes somebody within the organization to really want to see this happen, and hopefully it's from the top down. Hopefully the leader of the group is the one saying, we need to push this. But it starts with talking to, marketing and HR to say what is our purpose here, and what's our the communication we want to discuss. And then yes, you work with either an ad agency, work with a designer. It could be corporate branding, and then to make it come to life, yes, you could work with someone like Nimlok Chicago or any kind of sign group that can print pictures and things like that. But usually it's got to start with somebody who's got that little gut check of, I know this will really improve our work environment.
Yeah, it can be identified by many different people, but how it gets started is, yes, there's usually one champion who says, we're getting clobbered here. When people take a tour of our competition, they come back and tell us. They say, I learned a lot from those guys. I didn't learn so much from you. Well, there's your sign that, hey, maybe we have to rethink this. Or if you have a lot of applicants for a job at your place, but after walking them through and having them come by, not too many are taking a bite.
Yeah.
You can notice that, hey, from an HR standpoint, we're spinning our wheels. We're getting the people in here, but they're not converting into employees. And we don't want to lose all these A players. So I think it takes someone with vision to understand it, but really it's a business problem. Once again, everything comes back to, why will this be a good strategy for us?
Yeah. The one thing I'll add real quick to this is we have had clients push back on us to say, we don't have a lot of clients or customers that come through our facility. And, our spin today has been that this is about the employees, and this is about the employees have to have a happy place to work and a comfortable place to work and need to know what is the communication. So you don't have to spend a ton of money to do this. It's not even that hard. It could just be a good coat of paint with some great graphics on it, and that's about it. And like Tim showed, it was magnetic boards.
Magnet boards,
done.
Rolls of craft paper.
Yeah.
It's we obviously don't have the budgets of the larger companies, so we figure out a way, though, because the message is important. And however you can share that is fantastic.
Exactly.
There's another question here that came in from Peter. And Peter said, does employee messaging and enviro branding work better for some industries than others? I would say that there are parts of it that are universal, and I think there are parts of it that are definitely industry related. So, for instance, technology companies where you're going to be hiring a lot of millennials, you're going to go hard and fast at them, and the only way you're going to get them is really moving quickly and efficiently to get their passion built for what you're doing. I think that there are probably some other industries that really have done a very poor job over the years in doing this, and they have all the opportunity in the world. That would be like banks and financial institutions who have not really shared this, I don't want to say hugger mentality, but I think there is a point to be made for people that truly trust each other and working hard to do that. In the banking industry, it's kind of, it's all out for me in a lot of cases. And I don't want to say that in a big negative way, but if you were going to ask this question of me, those are the first two things that pop into my mind.
We've only got about 10 minutes left, so we want to wrap up. Just another question that came in was, should we rely on technology like monitors or TV to communicate our brand, which is definitely a trendy way that everybody wants to be all techie and swipe this way, swipe that way, all the images. So what do you think about that, Tim?
I think that technology has certainly got a place in this. As we have a lot of information that's constantly changing, there's some really cool programs out there that have touch screens, and they have the ability to have pertinent information fed right into the displays. You can create your own dashboards and so forth. But I think that there's another part of this where you are coming into an environment and you want that environment to touch you in some way. You're not going to say it that way, but you are looking for clues as to whether I want to work with this company or whether I want to work for them, with them, however you want to state that. But I think that we have a chance to touch, to feel. We are human beings. And even textures can play a big role in this. I've seen some really cool things where you have the contrast of smooth versus rough to tell a story. And so there are things in which you want to feel, hear, maybe even smell what's going on. So I think there's room for both. And again, it really depends on what kind of message you want to share.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that because the one thing that's a drawback to technology is that I have to interact with it first for it to kind of it wants me to do something to it. Where if you go back to the basics sometimes and just have a beautiful picture or a beautiful graphic of some kind, it's there all the time, always communicating, always kind of exuding the message to you, versus you having to kind of be with it and almost awaken it type of thing.
Yeah, I was in an engineering company a few months ago, and they had this full wall picture of Chicago from an aerial view. And as I'm looking at it, I'm trying to, recognize all these different landmarks and so forth. And the person from the company kind of walked up and saw me looking at this in the lobby, and they said, "It's all in the details." And when you think about how do you construct an entire city like ours and do it well and leave that lakeshore free and green, and how do you do all this stuff? That moment when he said it's all in the details really supported their brand. Engineering's all about the details.
Let's see, we've got one last question here we can jump into. Actually, it's kind of funny because it's alluding to the picture that we have up on the screen right now. Is the woman in the picture you're showing now a graphic of some kind? So kind of playing off the heels of the last question with technology, this is actually a hologram that you shine on a piece of plexiglass, and she greets you and says hello when you walk in. So it's kind of funny that you should ask that. But then behind the scenes, you see the tactical showroom of our clients was trying to display their machine parts and whatnot. So it's kind of funny that we should be asked that question as we're talking about technology. So we've got about 5 minutes left. We're going to answer one more question here, which was somebody asked, how do you get your employees to really interact and to kind of bite on these programs? I'm paraphrasing what they wrote, but it said, how did you get your employees to fill out the kick-ass award nominations? Like, how do you incentivize them to really, want to participate?
I love that question because each time we walk by that display, that question comes up. Why do people participate in this, and what do you offer them if they get the most nominations or so forth? But all they get is that little trophy to put on their desk for that week, and then they bring it back and we give it to the next person who has the most nominations. And we don't measure one kicking ass against another kicking ass. It's really just a matter of let's recognize all ass kicking. So, but I do get asked that a lot. And surprisingly enough, and like a lot of the things that we've talked about today, you don't have to make people do a lot of things that they should want to do. And when they understand how good it feels to be recognized, they like to recognize others. So facilitating the opportunity to interact is probably more important than making anyone do anything or even incentivizing them to do it. We've never given a cash thing. We've never given a prize of any kind for it. And it still continues to be so popular. It's a very fun part of our meeting because people They just want to be recognized. And this is a great way to do it.
Sure. Well, that's going to wrap up for today's webinar. As we mentioned, this will be sent to you if you request as a recorded webinar. We hope that we brought some good insight to you, and if you have any questions, you can follow up with us later on. But thank you very much for your time, and a special thanks to Tim for taking time out of his day to help educate us and many of our customers and clients.
I've enjoyed it. You've given me a lot of things to talk about with some beautiful displays.
So thank you again very much.